of the Angels and Destiny show. Why is this show called this, you may ask? So I'll tell you. The accepted meaning of angel is messenger, and the accepted meaning of destiny is to make firm establish. So my guests and I bring you messages to establish what you need to know in the present. And of course, I like working with angels and the calmness they bring. Now, in a moment, I will introduce you to my wonderful guest, Sandra Cooze. Actually, I never got to ask that. Is it Cooze or Cooze?
No, Cooze, it's correct.
Okay. So, but before that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching the show live at a later date, as it means a lot to me to connect with like minded people. Now, if you've never met me before, then my name is Rae, and I'm a guide who helps you remember your divine presence so that you can heal your past, create your future, and transform your present to raise your consciousness, understand your spiritual path, and take charge of your destiny to spread your wings and soar. I'm the founder of Radiant Angel Energy, and I use angelic Reiki, future life progression, past life regression, guided meditation, angel oracle cards, and divine presence to assist you on remembering why you are here, your spiritual path, and the clarity on the next steps to take. I also offer a multidimensional virtual retreat, several transformational packages, a journey through lifetimes, a 6-week guided meditation series to help you gain confidence, and various workshops throughout the year. Now, each episode of the show covers various themes of your journey, a mini guide meditation or angel oracle card reading, with the wisdom of my wonderful guests, like today's guest, Sandra Cooze, about the evolution of humanity and the origin of trauma. Now, Sandra is an intuitive trauma release and empowerment coach, certified traumatic incident reduction facilitator, Reiki Master teacher, and published author. Her passion and dedication for trauma healing was born as a result of her own traumatic past. Molested as a child, bullied in school, sexually assaulted, and raped as a young adult, Sandra felt lost for many years until the unusual request of a friend sent her on the path of true healing and transformation. She's part of her spiritual journey. She has studied the tarot and healing through the Akashic records. And her recently published book, Journey into Yourself: How to Heal the Trauma, takes the reader on a journey through the mysteries of trauma and the effects it can have on the body, mind, and spirit. Now, while unraveling the concept of trauma, she lists helpful tools, leaves rooms for notes, and encourages her readers to work through the unique exercises she lists to support them in their healing journey. And the reviews on the book, if you check out on Amazon, absolutely amazing. And with testimonials such as Sandra is intuitive and gifted. I'm blessed because of her work. Highly recommend her services. And she walks her talk. I never felt so safe exploring my trauma. So, without further delay, hello, Sandra, and welcome to the Angels and Destiny show. How are you today?
Hi, Ray. Thank you so much for having me. I'm wonderful. How are you?
Oh, absolutely brilliant. So, before we get into this fascinating conversation, I want to remind you that not only can you share this video, but you can also ask questions, leave comments and thoughts, as both Sandra and I want to be part of this conversation. So, please don't be shy. So, Sandra, why don't you tell us more about your journey and the evolution of humanity and the origin of trauma?
Well, where can I start? My journey is, well, started out very difficult. And, but, really with going through your trauma, oftentimes you find your purpose. And so, to start at the beginning, I was molested when I was 12. I was sexually harassed when I was 14. I was bullied in school between the age of 16 and 17. I was sexually assaulted multiple times between the age of 19 and 25. I was raped at 22. And when I went for help to a psychologist, he dismissed me after the first session, saying that I already worked through it all, what he was supposed to do. That was, yeah, the part when I hit rock bottom, and I had a choice. I had a choice to either stay at rock bottom and possibly go into drug and alcohol abuse to numb the pain, or I could climb back out. Well, since I'm here, I climbed back
You
out.
can't back out.
Yes, I climbed back out. And the beginning of my healing journey actually came from a friend of mine who was very spiritual, long before I knew what spirituality actually meant. He saw me one day sitting on a couch, being down, depressed, just really tired. And he looked at me with a stern face, hands on his hips, and said, "Get a quartz crystal already." Like, I knew what that was. I had no idea what he meant. But I did as he asked. And he explained to me that I should first cleanse it and then take it with me when I go to sleep and just meditate with it at night. And still no real idea about meditation other than sitting there with your eyes closed saying, but so I did as he asked. And within 3 months, I actually felt better. I wasn't healed by any means, but I felt lighter. And that was the beginning of my healing journey and my introduction to spirituality.
Wow. Just from a quartz crystal, and is absolutely amazing. And it
Mhm.
just goes to show the power of crystals,
Yes.
um, as well with it. So how did kind of like how did your trauma actually show out in you? Because I'm guessing that trauma shows out in people in so many different ways.
Yes. Well, for me, for the most part, it was fear of men, of course. Then I sabotaged any relationship I was ever in until I started to really looking at myself and realizing what I was doing and deciding that I didn't want another relationship until I am the person I would like to be in a relationship with. And I must have done something right with that statement because 3 months later, I met my husband.
Ah.
Yes. So something must have clicked. And yeah, I was very closed up. I didn't really go out. I gained a lot of weight to protect myself because everything that happened when I was thin. And I still struggle with the weight, but at least I know why I have it. So it's okay. I love myself regardless. And that's very important in your healing journey, loving yourself first. And yeah, I was just retracting from life, really.
Yeah. So how did you kind of like retract from life? Was it obviously putting on the weight, not going out? Was it not going out? Was it not engaging?
It was not going out anymore. I became an hermit just by myself. And I stopped talking. I stopped being confident. I stopped having fun going out. I mean, let's say 2 years after I was raped by my then boyfriend, best friend, I decided to go out to a Cuban club with friends of mine. And I was asked to dance by a young man. And we were dancing to Cuban tunes, which are pretty fast. And he was pushing me so hard against his body that I could feel his growing erection. And he wouldn't let me go. So I was basically assaulted on the dance floor. So you see, no matter where I went, something always happened. And that's what it seemed like. I came to the point where I asked, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why can't I just find love? Why can't I just find someone who loves me for me and not for my body? So then the weight gain came because I was like, I want to hide. I want to be invisible. I don't want to be seen anymore. And yeah, so I just went more and more into myself and I stopped trusting anyone. I stopped talking about myself. I just became invisible.
Yeah. So how did that? Because obviously you had all these things happen to you, including being bullied at school. Um, you know, was there one of those particular incidents that really kind of like really close? Was it that last one that really closed you down? And had you been coping with the others, but you'd been fairly normal with the other stuff?
I think, yeah, it was really the last one that really closed me down because I tried once more to go out and have fun, and then that happened. So I think that was the last straw where I said, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of stuff to happen over a lifetime. I mean, with the clients you see, do you find that it's a lot of them have just one trauma, or they kind of like have several traumas before they actually seek any help or guidance?
Well, I had a few who only had one trauma, but most of them had lifetimes of trauma. And the time when we are ready to heal, to seek out, is when we're being so severely triggered that there's no suppressing anymore. At some, we can, I mean, I was suppressing too for the longest time. It's normal, it's a way to cope. But at some point, something happens that triggers us so much that it all comes rushing back into the consciousness. And once it's back, there is no suppressing it back. It's impossible. So that's the time when we have to find someone to help. And for me, psychologists didn't help, didn't want to help, didn't know how to help. I assume he wasn't trauma informed. So I had to find my own way of healing, which gives me the advantage because I know exactly how it feels with my clients. I know exactly where they are in their journey and I can sympathize. But I also know how amazing it feels once you're completely healed. So I know both sides. So I'm basically the bridge between their trauma and their freedom of it.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful that you can actually do, you can actually
Mm.
do that and be that bridge between them. So how does spirituality come into the work that you do? Because if you were to look at it face value, it's kind of like trauma is really sort of like a physical type thing. You think of psychiatrists, etc., but then you get the spiritual side.
Well, the thing is, when we think of trauma, we think about what happened. But it's not about what happened, it's about how we react to it. So let's imagine that three friends, three female friends, go into a bar. It's not a joke, it's a
Yeah.
comparison. But one has never been traumatized in a sexual way before. The other one is still recovering from a sexual assault. And the third one has completely healed her trauma. So all of them get, like, let's say, a slap on the butt or something from a man. So the first one feels uncomfortable, goes home, and is worried that this might ever happen again because it didn't feel good. She didn't like it. So that's trauma in the making. The second one, who is still working through her trauma, is just getting re traumatized and takes a long time to get over this little, let's call it little assault, to feel safe to go out again. And the last one, you know what she would do? She would just turn around and slap him because she has healed all her trauma. And once you heal your trauma, you're not getting re traumatized. It's almost impossible because once you release your trauma, your self confidence, your self love, your self respect, it just comes back automatically because it's all there. It's just buried underneath your trauma. So basically, trauma healing is nothing physical, it is spiritual. It's a
Okay.
huge part. It all belongs together. So, and if we only heal trauma, let's say with a therapist, we only look at one angle, but we forget the physical and the spiritual aspect. Mental emotion is just one part. And so, what I do in my work, I focus on all angles individually. I give homework, I write meditations for my clients that they can work through. And so, whatever I feel guided to do, they get as homework to help them with the process. And they get through the trauma much faster than if you only tackled it from one aspect.
That makes so much sense. And you kind of like think, why can't I mean, I suppose it's like most things, with any type of spiritual stuff. Why can't doctors and that actually use it as to work with, a complementary to it? It makes sense, but it's kind of like they don't do it, and you just can't understand why they don't do it.
Well, we could theorize that, but better not.
No, that's probably taken us into a
Yeah, that's
whole
politics. We
different
don't need that.
whole different conversations. And
Yeah.
Hermes is watching on YouTube, who says hi to all. Ellie is watching on Facebook. Hi, Ellie. Hi, Hermes. Thank you for joining. And if anyone's got any questions that they'd like to ask Sandra, about trauma, you don't have to give your personal stories or anything like that, but any questions that you've got, take advantage of Sandra being here. whilst you've got her, because she has such a vast knowledge, and as she was saying, she does come from all angles, not just from sort of like the medical angle on it. So how did you get into the Akashic records?
Well, first time I heard about the Akashic Records was during my Reiki training. That's when I first heard about them, and I was intrigued. But whatever I learned from the Akashic Records was you go in and you read for people. But I'm a healer. I was like, okay, so if I can read for the Akashic Records, why can't I heal through them? So everything I saw was never enough. Then I tried to access them myself, but the Akashic records are better protected like than Fort Knox. So even though going into the records is your birthright, you have to be ready because it's a lot of responsibility. So whenever I tried to enter before I wasn't ready, I had like hellhounds stopping me. Literally, I saw them in my dreams. It was freaky. But then I came across a modality called soul realignment. And that is healing through the Akashic records, like soul level healing. And that was the moment when I was invited in. So because this was the right moment. For a few years, I did soul realignment. I still offer it every once in a while. It's basically a report about your soul, where your soul comes from, what your gifts are, how many spirit guides you have, if you have any attachments. So, and then everything we found, like curses, spells, pacts, bindings, anything we find is ready to be released by your soul. And then we release that through the soul realignment. Now, that's how I started. But the more trauma healing I did, the deeper I went. So first I did regular trauma healing, then I went into, all the limiting beliefs, the self-sabotaging behavior, helping from a spiritual point of view. And then I got turned towards the ancestral and generational healing, the past life and karmic healing. And that's something that I developed to do in the Akashic records. So I go in the Akashic records and find out what is attached to you from your ancestors and release that. What is attached from past life? What trauma is still attached to you from past lives? Or is there a karmic lesson? Is there karma we have to clear? So that's what I do with the Akashic records. And to be honest, I love it.
Wow.
It's intense. And you'll probably be sitting there for 2 days bawling your eyes out with all the energy that's coming up to be released, but it's something.
Oh wow, that's amazing. So do you actually take people to they experience it themselves, or do
Yes.
you so they get
Yeah.
into they experience it?
Exactly. So we talk about, usually they tell me, okay, this keeps coming up, like a certain feeling or a certain behavior. And if you cannot figure out what happened in this life that would cause it, then we go into the generational ancestral aspect or past life and see what's there. And usually I see like a movie, like in my mind playing, like what happened to cause this trauma or belief system, and then I clear it for them and we talk about it. And most of my clients feel it instantly. Others take a couple days, but everybody's different.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing where with healing, and
Mhm.
that how it can affect people, either instantly or several days later, where you get that phone call going, "I've been crying for several days in a row." Um, the type thing. It's like, yeah, just keep letting it come out.
Yeah.
It's all that releasing from it. So, how did you get into writing a book about it? Was that something you'd always wanted to do? Was that something that just sort of like came about?
Well, to be honest, if you had told me 5 years ago I would ever write a book about trauma healing, I wouldn't have believed you. I always wanted to write, but I don't know, I always thought it would be like a romance novel writer, like the cheesy type, Scotland and all that. But yeah, the more I worked with my clients and the more I evolved on my own journey, the more I realized how little we know about the connections between trauma and spirituality and how it works. And with my own healing journey, it just makes sense. I mean, trauma just makes sense to me, from every angle. And so I started writing a book. I wanted to write a book about yeah, the journey to yourself. That was the initial idea, like from healing trauma over finding out who you really are. But the more I wrote, the more the trauma came through. And then I thought, okay, if I write everything in one book, it's going to be an encyclopedia type. So I changed it into three. So, A Journey to Yourself is the series, and How to Heal from Trauma is book one of three. Right now, I work on the second one, How to Unbecome Who You Were Taught to Be, which focuses on limiting beliefs, self sabotaging behavior, and social and generational conditioning. And the third one then is going to be, well, how to become your true self. So, really unraveling the whole journey from trauma to self discovery.
Wow. That's amazing. 3 books.
Yeah, what
You
was I
know.
thinking?
But, then looking at the reviews you've got for the
Yeah.
first book, you can understand, why. And if anyone who's watching this actually does read Sandra's book and you feel it's beneficial, then please do leave a review because the book really deserves to be further up on the shelf. And Louise says ancestral healing resonates. And I think and I know personally with a lot of clients that I'm getting to see now, a lot of ancestral stuff is coming through. I don't know if you're
Mhm.
noticing that at all.
Yep, I've noticed this year was all about ancestral healing. Because when you think about the planet is rising, the energy is rising into 5D, and we're stuck in 3D because of all our ancestral and generational trauma and the evolution of humanity, which is connected. So, yes, there's a lot of ancestral healing coming through, especially if you have already worked through your own trauma and you're still stuck. There's something deeper going on, and it's usually ancestral or generational.
Yeah. And it is so important to
Mm,
clear that now because when you clear it, the future generations don't have to go through
exactly.
everything that everyone's gone through up to that point, which is beneficial for them because they can then go and enjoy their life without all
Mhm.
those issues, sort of like coming in again. So, when you met your husband, had you completely healed from your trauma,
Yeah.
or were you still?
No, I was still very deep in my trauma, but he gave me the space to heal. He didn't know anything about my trauma or very little. And I remember the day that he actually found out, or when first talked about him, it was in 2017. I was invited to speak or to create a video for an event called, what was it called? Winspiration. It was created in Europe and it's always on May 7th, I believe, to inspire the world. And so I made a 2-minute video about what I've been through and that I completely healed by then. And I asked my husband to read the script since I'm from Germany. And sometimes those little words in English that drive me crazy. Those on and off and for and everything. So I wanted him to double check. And he read the paper. I listed everything I've been through, put it down, came over, and just gave me the biggest hug I've ever gotten. No, that's my husband. So, yes. And he has supported me in my journey of trauma healing and everything since the beginning without knowing. So, he gave me the space. And even now, he's supporting me. So, now that I know when I'm being triggered, he takes it in stride, and then later we talk about what I've been triggered about, and it's all right because he's learning from it too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So, so triggers still happen years later.
not from the trauma, not that, but sometimes, from growing up, like something your mother once said, or sometimes it's even ancestral that's coming up, and I don't know where it's coming from. So it's little things and very sporadic, nothing big, but yeah, I just feel when it's coming on and I work right through it and release it and be done with it. That's the beauty of releasing your trauma. At some point, you just have a little trigger come up and you deal with it and it's done. And then you grow. every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So kind of like I mean let's go go back to obviously say bullying and that. Do you feel that if it had been understood more when you were younger, then things might have been then the trauma might have been slightly different with that, especially if people have got children in this lifetime that are being bullied, about the best way of dealing with it. Do you feel that there were ways that could have helped you if people had known about it at the time?
Well, I told my grandma about the bullying, and she was like, just ignore them, they will stop. That was all the help I got. So, of course, they haven't stopped. Eventually, they did, yes, but not then. So, yes, I think most most adults don't realize is that the children, they're just going through it. We have been through that already. We know we're going to get through this, but they're living it at this moment. So when I talk to a client who has this issue, I say, get down on the level of your child and talk to them from teenager to teenager, not from adult to teenager. Speak their language. Talk to them in a way they can understand right now. That's so important. It's like if someone would have explained to me that probably my parents didn't even know, or my grandma, of course not, but they wouldn't have known that the bullying comes from when someone is jealous about you, when someone feels empowered by making someone else hurt. I was always a loner, not just because of the trauma, but I like being alone.
Yeah.
And I like being with people, but I also enjoy my alone time. So it was okay when I was just sitting there doing break and reading a book. I always had my nose in a book as a child.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
done
but
that
they
one.
took advantage of that. And yeah, so adults need to understand that they have to talk to children from their level. Try to understand what they're feeling right now, not because even though parents try to do their best, teenagers might feel as if their feelings are being dismissed in this moment because parents talk from a different viewpoint. So always go back to the viewpoint of your child and be at the same level. And if you have to remember how it was when you were bullied or you saw someone else being bullied, go back into that moment and feel how that felt. You can better help your child. That's empowering. Not saying, well, they're going to stop eventually. That's not,
Yeah.
that didn't
Or
help
hit
me.
them,
It's not going to help anyone.
or hit them.
Yes. And I mean, it wasn't easy. They did spitballs on me and kicked my feet. And one time I was writing a letter to my pen pal and I told her about my first boyfriend that I had and how excited I was. And I was 16. And they stole that letter, made copies, and distributed them throughout the whole school. Things like that. Now, how do you explain to a child why another child is doing that on purpose?
Yeah.
Because they like you? That's the most ridiculous thing we can tell our children.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense to be on there, and I think that's with a lot of stuff with children. It's kind of like, yes, we can be the parent, but um, we need to sort of like sometimes speak on their level so so they can understand. And they don't feel that we're talking down to them,
exactly.
and we kind of like understand, or we may not know the answer, but we understand what they're going
Yeah.
through. And do you find that, with clients or people who've got a trauma, that sometimes, even if you can't offer a solution, it's that kind of like, okay, I get it on that level, I understand. Do you find that sometimes that's actually really more quite empowering rather than, okay, you can do this towards it?
Yes. Well, I am always being very honest with my clients. I never sugarcoat. I'm always direct. Most of them like it. But yes, sometimes I don't know the answer. And I tell them, okay, well, I'm not quite sure, but let's figure this out. So, and then we brainstorm together. It's amazing what people realize about themselves if you give them the chance to really brainstorm with you. It's not, there's nothing wrong saying sorry, I don't know right now, because sometimes we just don't. I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And Louise has come up with a question. I've released, cut calls, and forgiven, but still feel some anger holding on to be happy to let it go. Why does that happen?
well, just from that, I can give you a 100% answer, but it could be that there's some triggers still that go deeper, a little deeper into childhood, because triggers come up when a memory comes up that is triggering. So if you get the moment where you don't feel happy, ask yourself exactly how you feel, and then follow that feeling, follow that trigger, and think about, where did I feel like this before? And then go a little deeper. Like, where else did I feel like this before? So you basically will see scenarios in your head where you felt like this. And the more you understand how you feel, the faster you get to the root cause. And once you understand the root cause, you can release that, and that should definitely help.
Mhm. And if
I hope
it's
so.
and if you kind of like do that and you go, I can actually work out where, in my current past this has come from. Would you then say it's time to look at the past and ancestral,
Yes.
um, or what your family went? Maybe
Hmm.
your parents, your mother, your father, or whatever grandparents. I suppose ask them the
Yes.
question: did you ever feel like this?
Right. That would be the next course of action. If really nothing comes up, which is possible, then I would say, okay, let's go and look into the ancestral and generational part. So, how was your family? How was your upbringing? Do you know your grandparents? How was their marriage? Things like that. And then usually we already get the feeling, okay, there is more to explore. And then we go into the Akashic records and see, where is this coming from?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so I hope Louise that answered that question for you. And if anyone else has got any questions, they want to ask them, please feel free to ask. And thank you so much, Louise, for actually sharing that with us. It's absolutely wonderful that you've chosen to share it. So thank you so much. And I think that must have resonated because Louise says thank you.
You're very welcome. I hope it helped.
So thank you, Louise. So as you know, I do mini guided meditations and angel oracle card readings, and each week I like to ask my guests whether they would like me to do a mini guided meditation or pull an angel oracle card for themselves and those watching. So, Sandra, what would you like me to do?
I think I would like a reading.
Funny enough, I have the cards right here. Amazing, that isn't it? I always have the cards with me wherever we go. So when I do the card readings, as some of the viewers may know, I don't do readings to predict the future. Because the way I work, everything like you is kind of like it. You need to be in the present for it. So we go back in the past to understand and heal the past, so that it doesn't affect us in the present. And when I take people into the future, it's so they can understand and see where their future is. So again, it doesn't affect you in the present. So, as always, when I do the cards, it's what does Sandra and everyone who's watching this live or the replay need to know for their highest good at this moment in time? What does Sandra and everyone who's okay, we'll go with that one because that one wants to come out. Perfect. Finding sanctuary, opening to your spiritual source.
That's very fitting.
How very perfect for what we've actually been talking about. I don't think this card's actually ever come out before, which is a new one and really an interesting one. So it is kind of like saying find your sanctuary, whether that's internally, externally, real or imaginary. You know, imagine your perfect Shangri-La, your most perfect place of safety, relaxation, peace, and just go there and just open up to the guidance, to the spiritual energy around you. Um, you know, that will give you the answers, give you the comfort, the clarity that you actually need. And even if you don't get the answers, you will feel that comfort, that kind of like blanket around you of clouds. Um, and that so yeah, it is kind of like, and again, as Sandra's been saying, this is confirmation really of what Sandra's giving giving to people out there, is that finding that sanctuary, and opening up to those spiritual sources and insights that actually come through. So yeah, absolutely perfect card for everyone watching, and for you yourself, Sandra. Um, so Sandra, do you have any insights or thoughts or last words of wisdom that you can leave our viewers?
Yes.
Perfect.
Everything for
I like
one.
that. Yes.
Well, we often think that healing trauma is intimidating because we're so afraid of having to go through it all again. But it's so worth it because once it's released, you're free. It's not coming back. The story will never change, but the story will not keep you hostage anymore. You will regain so much. You will become a completely new person. And that in itself, you will change your whole life. You will find your purpose. And that is so worth healing what you had to go through.
Oh, beautiful. Perfect words. Yeah, because you're never going to change the story, but you can um, change how you react to the story. And that, which is absolutely beautiful, perfect words. So thank you so much for that. So I hope everyone that you've enjoyed this conversation and found it insightful, because I know I definitely have. So Sandra, if people want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Well, I would suggest through my website. It's riseaboveyourstory.com. Or you can find me on Facebook, also under Rise Above Your Story, on LinkedIn under Sandra Cooze. And yeah, I think that's enough.
Yeah, no,
Anyone
that's
of the
fine.
wrong people.
And I like the way you've got rise and above, because obviously with the finding sanctuary, it's kind of like
Mhm.
you've gone up into
Yeah.
you're rising above what's going on um, down below you. And your book's on Amazon, yes?
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, I will put that link in there as well, so that if people, for you those watching, if you want to check out Sandra's book and actually get it to help you through any trauma you or people are going through, then you can actually get it, and then do write a review about how it's helped you and given you some insights. So thank you so much, Sandra, for sharing your wisdom, and thank you so much for everyone watching, those that said hello, and definitely thank you, Louise, for your question. That was absolutely wonderful, and thank you so much for sharing that. And of course, if you are ready to remember your divine presence and to step onto your spiritual multidimensional path, but you feel lost, confused, stuck, or alone, then please feel free to reach out and connect with me, and we can arrange a free video call to discuss where you are now and how you can move forward to take charge of your destiny so that you can spread your wings and soar. And of course, please feel free to join my weekly newsletter and receive a free future life progression recording, where I take you to a future lifetime to get guidance and clarity that you can use in your current life, as well as a couple of other free gifts, including a cord cutting. And again, thank you everyone so much for watching. And I'd like to invite you to share this video, as I'm sure there are more people who feel lost and want to get clear on their destiny, just like you, who may have trauma they don't actually realize. That they can actually heal from it. And of course, if you are watching this on YouTube, then please feel free to subscribe and hit the bell button, be notified of when the show goes live or I post new guided meditations, as each subscription helps, every comment helps. And I look forward to you all joining me same time, same place next week. And just for Louise, the Angels and Spirits show is taking place this Wednesday. Yeah, anyone who wants a reading from myself and Graham, 7 p.m. UK time, ask us for a reading then. Again, thank you so much, Sandra, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Take care. Bye.